So good evening. We are back to the Spirit's book. And today, as I mentioned last week, we are going to talk about the union of body and soul. And if we get there, we are going to touch on abortion. Philip's not here. Zoraida or Paco, who reads for us today?
Okay, I could read. I hope the connection is good.
Yeah, the connection is good, Paco. Yeah.
Because
please.
sometimes it goes. I see it in my computer anyway. Zoraida, just be on the.
Okay, I'll be here.
On the lookout, okay, just in case. Where are we?
344.
344. Okay, this is the one I wanted. Okay. 344. When does the soul unite with the body? This union begins at conception, but is only completed at birth. From the moment of conception, the spirit assigned to inhabit a specific body joins that body by a fluid link, which will increasingly tighten up to the moment of birth. The cry produced by the infant announces that it has entered the number of the living and the servants of God.
Okay, so it's a very important concept here in the first question, right? When does the soul or the spirit that is coming back to a new reincarnation unites with the physical body? And the spirits are very clear here. The union begins at conception, which means at the moment that the physical body starts being formed by the union of the spermatozoid and the zygote, the conception begins, and there is a spirit attached to it, united by a fluid link, which will increasingly tighten up until the moment of birth. So the new human being is born when it comes out of the mother. But yeah. Yes, but the connection starts at the very beginning, and the spirit that is going to be linked to the physical body, as we discussed, it is connected before it. So it's connected in terms of vibration, in terms of connecting with the future parent at the moment of conception, before the conception. Okay, so this is a very important concept that we can always come back and discuss, but that's the idea here. So the spirits is telling us, and again, they're telling us this in 1857. Okay, which is I don't know what were the understanding at that time, but until today we continue with this notion that the union happens at the moment of conception.
Okay. Is the union between the spirit and the body conclusive from the moment of conception? Could the spirit, during the initial period of that union, abandon the body that has been assigned to it? The union is conclusive in the sense that no other spirit could replace the one to whom the body has been assigned. But as the link that binds the body and soul is very weak at first, it can easily be broken and severed by a spirit who abandons the trial it had chosen. When this happens, the child does not live.
Okay.
What? Okay, so, that's yeah. I need you to translate that.
Yeah. So let's go step by step here. First one, the union is conclusive in the sense that no other spirit could replace. So a woman is pregnant. There is a spirit attached to it. If a spirit, for some reason, disconnects from that new physical body that is being formed, no other spirit can connect
Bind.
to it,
Okay.
replace it. So that's very first important concept here. And I remember a long time ago, someone that lost a child and was pregnant telling us that she was told by a psychic that the child that died was being rebirthed and she was already pregnant. Of course, we didn't say anything because we're not going to pile on the misery that someone that is already suffering. But this is not possible. She was already pregnant when she lost the first child. So the first spirit of the first child, going back to the spiritual world, cannot connect to a body that is already in formation on a woman's womb. Okay, that's the idea here. Once a spirit is attached to a physical body at the moment of conception, only that spirit can inhabit that physical body. It cannot be replaced. But the link between the body and the soul is very weak at first. It can be easily broken and severed by a spirit who abandons the trial he had chosen. This opens a little bit of how does a spirit understands and rejects it. Again, this is the spirit is pretty much unconscious in a state of confusion during the pregnancy. But if it brings a very strong rejection to a new incarnation or to the parents, especially to the mother, it can be such a strong thoughts, such a strong disposition of rejecting the pregnancy that it may break the link between the body and the spirit and the new physical body. Again, these are exceptions. This is not the rule. The rule is normally that the spirit is unconscious and a state of confusion and it's not able to act on these inferior tendencies, let's say. But what the spirit is saying here, it is possible. And we read some cases in André Luiz's book. So it can be broken, like it can be broken by the future mother through an abortion. It can be broken by the spirit disconnecting from the physical body. And then what happens is that a miscarriage happens, or the baby is born without any life. Okay, if the disconnection happens during the pregnancy. If it's in the middle of the pregnancy, it's very likely that a miscarriage will happen. And if it's more close to the end, it may be possible that the woman will give birth, but to a stillborn baby. Okay. So when it says here, when this happens, the child does not live, it means the physical, the child, the body that is being formed, that is of a child, does not live. It's if it's not before being born, it's stillborn, right? That's the word, right? When it's the child is born dead, right? Yeah,
it's still born. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happens here.
Okay. Okay. I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So that means that it may not be a general principle, but there's always the possibility that the soul itself can back out from the process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Unlikely, difficult, but
unlikely,
possible.
but it's possible. Okay.
Yes. For several different reasons, right? A strong rejection between the future mother, and the spirit that is being connected to the physical body. It causes such a reaction between the two that the spirit cannot stay connected to it.
Exactly. Backs out. Yeah.
Yeah, backs out. Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
what happens to a spirit if the body it has chosen dies before birth? It chooses another. What is the purpose of premature death? Such deaths are most frequently caused by the imperfections of matter.
Okay, here we have two
Uh,
different things here, right? So,
yes.
yeah, the first thing is, of course, if the physical body of the dies, the spirit will have to use another opportunity to reincarnate. It may be with the same mother, it may be with a different mother and different family.
Mhm.
So the reincarnation is a natural law. So the spirit that is in the process of reincarnating is postponing the opportunity of reincarnation, but it will reincarnate. It is it's part of the divine law. Now, the second question, the spirits tells us something very interesting here, that especially at that time, right, when the treatment of unborn babies was, I don't know if it was, it existed, and maybe Elmo knows, but I don't think the medicine had any access to the baby that was inside the womb. So what the spirits tells us that most frequently the premature deaths are caused by imperfections of matter, our physical bodies, and the problems that happen because of our physical bodies are not perfect and have problems. And then you have this here we're talking about miscarriages, right? Premature deaths of the baby while the woman is pregnant. So what they are saying here is that in most cases, it's not caused because the spirit rejected it. It's caused by imperfections of matter, problems, physical problems that prevent the malformations of the physical body or something like that. Okay.
Yeah. So no, at that time, our science could not look at the health of the baby as we can see today. We didn't have the means of sonograms, of everything that we have today in terms of technology. We didn't have at that time. And we did not understand about chromosomes yet as well. So now we know that the great majority of miscarriage in the first trimester is secondary to chromosome abnormalities. So now we understand that very well. At that time, no, we had no idea about none of those things. What we could question is what is causing those chromosomal abnormalities. What if the perispirit is the organizer of the new body formation? Could it have a spiritual genesis? Very likely, but we need to be very careful and not go into conclusions so drastically, right?
Yeah.
So most of the miscarriages that we know today in the first trimester, you give to it a chromosomal cause. But then somebody may question, and what's causing those chromosomal abnormalities? Could it have a spiritual cause? It's very likely, and as spiritism, we know that just about everything comes from the spirit. It's very likely that spirit, the perispirit of that perispirit could not form a viable physical body.
And maybe it's we may attribute this to karma, right? Or
yes,
necessity of the spirit to go through that experience, or the parents, right?
Correct.
And we'll see that in a question here, but I think that's the reason here, one of the reasons here, right?
Oh.
Okay.
Now, can the spirit derive any benefit from incarnating a body that dies a few days after birth? the new being's cognizance of its life is so fairly developed that its death is of little importance. As we have told you, such deaths are often intended as a trial for the parents.
Okay, so miscarriages here, right? What benefit a spirit has, and we know that sometimes, especially in cases, let's say, euthanasia, suicide, by when someone is very sick, you are shortening a life for a very small period of time. And one of the consequences of this may be coming to a new incarnation and completing these months that we were supposed to continue living, and going through the experience of a miscarriage and a failed attempt at reincarnation. Okay, this is on the side of the spirit, amongst many different causes that can be. But of course, the ones that are going to suffer more are the parents, right? The potential parents. So why do the parents have to go through these trials? Again, many different reasons, but all reasons related to, mostly all reasons related to abuse of the opportunity of being parents in this or in previous incarnations, right? So we know that we've been living many incarnations, and we abused, for sure, we abused our right to be parents in one or another incarnation, and that creates consequences for our actions that we may repair them on the way, or we may have to repair them through some of these experiences that the trauma of a miscarriage causes on parents, especially those that really want to have children and have to face the struggles and frustrations of not being able to have a pregnancy to full term, okay, to carry a pregnancy to full term. But again, each case is a case. But you can imagine that a miscarriage must be a much more difficult trial for the parents than for the spirit that spends some time there and then goes back to the spiritual world, going back to his or her previous form without any major issue, meaning without having to go through the infancy or anything like that. It just goes back to the previous form that he had in the spiritual world after a period of course, of perturbation, because it always happens, but it will go back to the previous form, which in a much less traumatic way than for the parents that lose the child that they were expecting. Okay.
I have a comment.
Sure.
I like this topic, by the way. I like this topic a whole lot. But from the spirit perspective, wasn't that a nice gesture for him to be able to engage in such a process in order to help with the trial for that parent? You understand?
Yes.
So it's a plus for that spirit, because the spirit is acting, even though we may look at it like the mother is going to suffer and all that, but in actuality, the spirit is helping the mother.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes, you can see that way, but you look on both sides, right? The spirit that has to go through the experience goes through the experience, at the same time helping the mother and the father go to the need that they have to go through, the experience they have to go through. So works on both sides.
Right, yes. So just as an example, and again, it's just an example. Let's think of someone who committed a suicide in such a way that the whole physical body was tremendously destroyed and injured. Let's say, I don't know, jumping for a very high, very, very high building right on the ground and break every single bone, destroyed every single organ, lay on a train track and let a a train run over that physical body. You know, you can imagine the amount of destruction that was caused. And a great deal of that destruction is now imprinted in that perispirit. So the likelihood of that perispirit being able to form a viable physical body in the next incarnation is very small.
Oh, yeah,
And
I see.
yes, because that perispirit is severely injured and traumatized, right? It's
Uh-huh.
very unlikely they'll be able to form a viable physical body in the next reincarnation. So that next incarnation being very short, as another possibility, is enough to provide some recovery for that perispirit. That's very short. I don't know how long that may be from conception to
Yeah,
a month.
yeah,
Okay, in association with matter, will be perhaps enough to give
to
some
stop.
recovery or
Exactly.
some treatment for that perispirit, that then in the following reincarnation will be able to form a viable body, even if defected. Likely it will be still have a defect, gonna be a perfect body. You
Wow.
may have anomalies, but you'll be able to survive and go through the necessary trials. So you associate that spirit that we know not going to be able to form a viable physical body in association with parents that need to go to that
Exactly.
experience.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And
Wow.
and
Wow.
and this way everybody gains for it. And that
Exactly.
spirit, and in that spirit, in the next possible trial of reincarnation, will likely be able to now form a viable physical body, even
So,
if with some defect. At least we'll survive and go through the necessary experiences.
wow, that's great. That is beautiful. Wow.
Thanks, Elmo. Yes.
Thank you, Elmo. That's, it's like it, like, I don't know if I'm very positive, right? But you see, but we see this even from that negative experience. There's always something positive. That's my point.
Mhm.
But that's my
Yeah.
point also. It's a beautiful system that,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
though it's painful and difficult, it leads to goodness. That's why Paulo says, be grateful to
exactly,
everything. And everything is everything.
exactly. Be grateful for everything.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Does a spirit know beforehand that the body it chose has no chance of living? Sometimes, but if it chooses it on this account, it is because of fear of the trial it foresees.
Yeah. Does the spirit may know beforehand that it's not going to be successful? Yes, it may. First, the spirit has to be aware of the process of reincarnation, right? Second, it has to be evolved enough to understand the ins and outs of it. So I would say that it's unlikely, but the spirit may choose it in order to, again, it's all the things that we just discussed. Okay, this all can be planned by the spirit or by the spiritual guides if the spirit is in no condition of participating. So I think the fear of the trial, again, it's something that if the spirit has accepted the challenge of a reincarnation, to choose a body that is not going to be doable, it's kind of it doesn't make much sense to me. Okay, so I'm not very comfortable with this fear of the trial it foresees here. I don't know, Elmo, if you have
Yeah.
any.
I'm not very comfortable with that also. Likely the spirit's not even aware what's most often of what's about to happen.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Next.
Okay. When a spirit has failed to enter a plant incarnation, Is another existence available for it immediately? Not always immediately. The spirit needs time to make new choices, unless the instant reincarnation had been previously decided.
Okay,
And
so
this,
again, if you remember, there are 3 times more spirits in the spiritual world than in here in the physical world. You can imagine that it's not a reincarnation is not available for anyone that wants at any time, right? It requires some planning and some arrangements. Now, they talk here, so the spirit that that fails to enter a new incarnation is going to have to wait for, go back in line, let's say, to wait for the new opportunity. But there are exceptions. And, a case of an exception that I learned some time ago. I was new to Spiritism. A couple that had she had a miscarriage when she was 3/4 months pregnant, and then some 6 months later she got pregnant again, and it was a successful pregnancy. And she was told that the spirit was the same, that the parents and the spirit had to go through the experience of the miscarriage or whatever we discussed before, but they were supposed to be together. So they went through the experience, they went to the trauma of the miscarriage, and then the same spirit came again and was born, and everything went fine. Okay, so this is what they say here. An instant reincarnation had been previously decided. This is the type of exception that can happen with a spirit coming right after a miscarriage or the death of the fetus. Okay.
very good. Very good. Okay. Does a spirit ever regret its choice when it is being connected to the infant body and it is too late to back out? If you're asking whether it complains of the life it has to suffer and whether it wishes it otherwise, like the way many human beings do, then yes. If you ask whether it regrets its choice, then no. Remember that the spirit does not recall the choice it made. Once incarnated, a spirit cannot regret a choice that is not conscious of having made. It may find the burden it assumed too heavy and turn to suicide if it's too much for it to bear. Wow.
Okay, so if we remember the case of Sigismundo in the book Missionaries of the Light, everything is arranged for him to reincarnate, and he starts having serious doubts about it, and he starts kind of rejecting the opportunity, and because the father was very very unfriendly to the reincarnation also. And he starts thinking about what he was leaving behind in the spiritual world, the work that he was doing there, and the opportunities, the challenges that he would have to face in his new incarnation. So that's when I read that, I immediately remember Sigismundo. If that it starts complaining about questioning the choice that he had made of a new incarnation. But again, once the spirit is connected to the physical body and enters into a state of confusion, you cannot regret a choice of something that you don't remember. So what we see people saying today, the famous phrase, "I didn't choose to be born," which is not true at all. We all choose it consciously or unconsciously, but sometimes the spirit will come and be overwhelmed by the challenge and make some regrettable choices to continue to their incarnation. Like they say here, yes, it's too heavy, and turn to extreme measures that are never helpful. But again, when the spirit is in the process of coming to a reincarnation, of course we have doubts. Remember, we just have to think of us here, right? It's a very simple case. You decide to move to a new job, and you sign and everything, and there's no way back now. You already agreed, and then you start having second thoughts. Did I make the right choice? Should I have waited? Should I have looked for a better opportunity? But it's too late. You have to go to the new job and start. It's kind of the same thing. You are going to second guess yourself because you're not 100% sure that you are going to succeed, and you are facing challenges that you are not sure you're going to be able to deal with. So that's in that case that is when the spirit has doubts. But once it's connected to the physical body, once it's reborn, it doesn't remember anything from before. So you cannot regret a choice that it doesn't remember having made, right? Okay.
Okay. In the period between conception and birth, does the spirit enjoy full use of its faculties? Yes, depending on the time, because it is only attached to its body and not yet incarnated. From the moment of conception, confusion begins to set in as the spirit is made aware that time has come for it to enter a new existence. This confusion increases until the time of birth. Between these two periods, the spirit state of mind is like an incarnated spirit during slumber. As birth approaches, its ideas and memory of the past fade away, and it no longer recalls them once it enters the physical body. This memory is gradually restored when it returns to the spiritual world.
So here we're talking the period between conception and birth. The more evolved the spirit is, the more it is able to use its faculty to the fullest. The less evolved the spirit is, the more he or she will be in the state of confusion without being able to use their faculties. They compare here with when we are sleeping, right? Our state, that we are living in the physical world and the spiritual world at the same time. It's more or less that the right analogy, right? We can have experiences in the spiritual world while being already in the process of connecting more and more to the new physical body. So, and the more the pregnancy goes forward, the more the confusion increases until the time of birth, okay? But again, it depends on the level of evolution of the spirit.
Exactly.
The more evolved spirits, they can enjoy almost full consciousness during the time of pregnancy, because they have a better understanding of the whole process. It makes sense,
like
right?
that. Yeah. I guess as the more evolved the spirit is, they can even enjoy the confusion themselves from the distance. Like they're not. I don't know. That's something came up to me now. They're not in the. Like if it's evolved, it's probably able to see even like distance itself from the vortex of the confusion. That's my point.
Yeah,
If it really evolved,
I can only imagine, because we don't know the details.
No, we don't know.
Yes.
It's a speculation this is speculation on my part, Joel. This is speculation. Definitely.
No, yeah, and I agree with you. I think that the more evolved the spirit is, the more the spirit is able to follow from a distance the whole process, understanding and following what's happening.
The process, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the spirit recover all of its faculties at birth? No, they gradually develop with the growth of its organs. This physical life is a new existence, and it must learn how to use its body and senses. The spirit gradually recovers its own ideas, like a person who wakes up only to find him or herself in a different situation than before falling asleep.
Okay. So again, it's just logic, right? A baby cannot have all its faculties because a baby doesn't know how to talk, to walk, to, it completely depends on the parents to take care of it. So the spirit there, even if the spirit has, it's an old spirit, it needs to adjust to the new physical body. And as the new physical body grows, the spirit then, the faculties that are supposed to be carried to this new incarnation, and remember, we don't bring all our intellectual faculties to a new incarnation, just the moral ones. Slowly they are going to be developed and adjusted to the new physical body and expressed. Again, we see some child prodigies, which are the exceptions, not the rule, right? That are able to access their abilities at a much younger age than others. But these are exceptions, but it can happen. When you think about Mozart composing a symphony when he was 4 years old, you can only imagine that the spirit came and very quickly recover all the music abilities and geniality of the spirit, right? But these are the exceptions, and normally it takes a while until the spirit is able to express. But again, when the spirit reaches around 6-7 years of age, it starts expressing more and more the intellectual abilities, and the moral qualities are shown from the very beginning, right? You can see in a young child the tendency, the bad tendencies and the good tendencies. You can see from very early age, and that's the role of the parents to try to educate these children to control these bad tendencies and to make good use of the good tendencies that they bring from their eternal souls. Okay.
Okay. 353. Does a fetus have a soul? Considering that the union of the spirit and the body is not fully consummated until birth. The spirit which to animate it exists somehow outside the fetus. Strictly speaking, it has no soul since the incarnation process is in effect, but the soul is linked to the body that is about to have.
Read the next one because it's very connected.
What is intrauterine life? It is the life of a plant that vegetates. A child lives an animal life. Human beings possesses in them both animal and vegetable life, which is completed at birth by the spiritual life.
Okay. Here the spirits.
That's heavy.
Yeah, the spirits throw some confusion to us here, right?
Yeah, so it's English, please.
Yeah. The first question here, we know that the spirit is connected from the moment of conception, but we also know that the full connection exists at the moment of birth. So while the spirit is connected, it's as the spirit who animates a body exists somehow outside the fetus, but the spirit that animates us exists somehow outside ourselves. We're not going to say that the spirit is inside our physical body or inside our very spirit. It's somewhere, but somehow outside. So what they're saying here is more or less the same, right? Again, the perispirit is being reduced to connect to the new physical body. And as the physical body develops, the perispirit grows with it. But as we just discussed, the spirit may or may not be fully connected to the physical body that is being formed, depending on the degree of evolution. So that whole process can be happening when the spirit is still enjoying their life in the spiritual world, as we just discussed. And so with that, what does the intrauterine life means? It means a body that is being developed. They made a comparison with an animal life, right? So when we talk about the development of a fetus, we in a book of André Luiz, we read that the fetus goes through all the phases since its creation. The mineral, vegetable, animal. It resembles an aquatic being. It resembles the fetus resembles a lot of phases that we go through our evolutionary process. So we could say that the development of a new child is going through all the phases that we went through our evolution. And all of this is completed at birth, as when the connection between the spirit and the physical body becomes complete, in the sense that it's a new life, it's a new reincarnation. And again, we know that the first 7 years of life, the spirit still lives half there and half here, right? Children live in the spiritual world as much as in the physical world, and that's why we see children talking about invisible friends, which to them are pretty visible because they are real. We cannot tell them that they are not real, because they are real to them and real in reality. So I hope you kind of understood what they meant here. I don't know if Elmo, if you can add something here.
Well, I think the spirits are trying to have tremendous fidelity to the terminologies, and by the terminology, the soul, by definition, is incarnated spirit, and also by definition, just at the beginning of this studies, that the reincarnation starts with birth. The attachment to matter starts at conception, but the beginning of the reincarnation per se starts at birth. So at birth, then we can say that it's a soul. Before that, is attached to spirit.
Let me clear this, because this is confusing. You know that?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, because listen to the sentence. So the spirit is attached to the body somehow. The spirit, but the body itself, or the fetus, has no soul.
Wow. Yes, because by definition, soul starts with the reincarnation. We cannot say there's a soul at birth. I'm sorry.
Soul,
at the moment of birth, we change the name spirit to soul.
To soul.
Right.
A soul is an incarnated spirit, correct?
Right.
A soul is an incarnated spirit. Incarnated, right. Okay. It's incarnated in physicality. If it's not, okay, but the fetus is not in physicality?
It is, but it's still having, as the spirit explained here, most like a vegetable, more of a vegetative state than really being a human reincarnate being out of in the world yet. Mm-hmm. So the spirit attached at the moment of conception. At the moment the spermatozoid penetrates that egg and form a zygote, there the spirit is attracted to it, and the process begins. Okay. Very often the approximation of the spirit to the mother is already there. In the normal cases, the parents have already been prepared to receive that spirit has been prepared to be the offspring for that next incarnation. That spirit is already hanging around, waiting for the moment of the conception to happen. When it happens, the spirit attached to it fluidically, and the process of sleepiness, if you want to say, or hibernation begins as well. because the spirit is agreeable with the process, know what's going on, and everything runs its normal path, right? A more evolved spirit may be able to maintain more its conscious states and perhaps do other things while the perispirit is also in the formation as forming that new physical body. For most of us, we're probably going to be in a state of sleepiness, go to the process of reduction, because you have to reduce ourselves a little bit. The process of kind of erase some of the things that you need to erase to have this new physical body to go through this next challenge. And that takes some time, whatever, 90 months. And in that period, we are spirits attached to a physical body. Now, once delivery takes place, and now that baby do its first cry and takes its first breath, now you no longer say the spirit, you say it's a soul. Now it's a soul because it's incarnated spirit. It's a matter of terminology, being have fidelity to the words. Otherwise, the spirits would be contradicting the doctrine itself. If they say that a fetus has a soul, not yet. If a fetus is attached to a spirit, and that attachment is also progressive from the time of conception to the time of birth. It's getting more and more that attachment becomes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper during that process as well. And at the moment of birth, then it's completed. Now it's no longer, we're no longer gonna call it a spirit, we're gonna call it a soul.
Okay, so I could say that the spirit attaches itself to the baby or to the fetus gradually until it reaches its peak, and once it reaches its peak, the child is born, and then it becomes a soul.
Yes.
Okay. Much better, yeah. Okay. This needs explaining, you know that. This is not easy.
Read the next two, please.
Okay. Is there such a thing as a stillborn child, as indicated by signs? If so, to what purpose does this take place? This happens often. God allows these births as a trial, either for the parents or for the spirit intended to animate it. Are some stillborn children never intended for the incarnation of a spirit? Yes, some never had a spirit assigned to them. Nothing would have been accomplished in them. In such a case, the child's arrival is simply a trial for the parents. Can a being of this nature come to term? Sometimes, but it does not survive. Does that mean that the child who survives birth has a spirit incarnated in it? What would be if this were not the case? It would not be a human being.
Okay, so a stillborn child here, when we talk about stillborn child, it may or it may not have a spirit attached to it, right? Most cases it does, because it's an experience for the spirits and for the parents. Very exceptional cases, never had a spirit assigned to them. So if there is no spirit connected to the physical body does not survive, does not exist. It would not be a human being, as they say here. So remember, in the middle of the 19th century, it was very common to have for children to die at birth, right? To be stillborn, again, I'm not sure, but to die at birth, either the mother, the children, or the child, or both, it was much more common because, of course, medicine didn't have the resources. It was something that was very much feared by families, the survival of the mother and the survival of the child on birth. So whenever this happens, if there is a stillborn baby, it is a trial always for the parents, and if there is a spirit attached to that body, for the spirit also. And it's what we discussed before. I don't think there is anything new here specifically that we need to discuss.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we get to the issue here. So just read the next 4, because we're going to finish this today. And we will discuss the whole subject altogether.
Okay. What are the consequences of abortion for a spirit? It is a fluid existence and must be restarted. Is voluntary abortion a crime, regardless of the length of the pregnancy? Any transgression of God's laws is a crime. Taking the life of an unborn child is a crime, whether committed by the mother or someone else, because the soul is prevented from experiencing the trials intended for the body that was destroyed. When the life of the mother is at risk by the birth of a child, is it a crime to sacrifice the child to save the mother? It is better to sacrifice a being that does not yet fully exist than a living being. Is it rational to treat a fetus with the same respect as the body of a child that has lived? You should acknowledge God's will and work. Do not treat lightly things that you must respect. Why should you not respect creations that are sometimes incomplete by their Creator's will? They are part of God's designs, and no one may judge it.
Okay. So when we talk about abortion, the first thing here, in both in French and in Portuguese, there are not 2 words. There are no words for miscarriage. Abortion is used in both voluntary and involuntary. Okay,
In Spanish,
both in French and in Portuguese. So that's why you have on the second question here, voluntary abortion, which is a word that exists in English. I looked for it, right? When I first read, I said, well, you don't need the voluntary there, because abortion is only used by, with sports. And that's not true. There is, if you look for miscarriage, you'll find a synonym called voluntary abortion, okay? So it's not completely wrong here. In the original French and in Portuguese, of course, you have to write voluntary, because there is no other word for a miscarriage. There is no word for miscarriage in both languages, okay? Now, the question that I want to bring before for us to discuss here is question 880 of the Spirit's book, which is the question, which is the first natural right of human beings? And the answer from the Spirits, the right to live. Therefore, no one has the right to take the life of another or do anything that may compromise that individual's existence. So, taking another one's life, it's against the natural law. And again, I want to bring everything, because it's not only relates to abortion, it relates to euthanasia, it relates to suicide, it relates to death penalty. They all belong in the same category of goes against the natural right of human beings, which is the right to live. Okay?
Question that again, Ron?
Question 880. 880.
880?
Yes. Yeah. I think that it's important for us to think of that, to start with that question, because it talks about all the attempts against human life in all different cases. Again, abortion, euthanasia, death penalty, suicide, right? Suicide, you are attempting against your own life, which you don't have the right against, again, according to the divine law, the natural law. So the Spirit says here, any transgression of God's law is a crime. So taking a life of an unborn child is a crime, whether it's committed by a mother or someone else, because the soul is prevented from experiencing the trials. It's important to remember, again, that we have 3 times more spirits in the spiritual world than incarnated spirits. So whenever you're talking about preventing a spirit to having, forcingly preventing a spirit to have an opportunity to reincarnate, you are going against God's law. When we talk about spiritism, spiritism is in favor of life. It's not against anything. There are causes and consequences. So we're not going to say that spiritism is against abortion, death penalty, euthanasia, suicide. We're going to say spiritism is in favor of life, and everything that attempts to forcefully to remove life of a human being is against the natural law. It's against the natural right of human beings. Okay? Now, of course, it is an issue that you have all these 4 things that I mentioned. Even suicide, it's recognized and accepted by the laws of some countries. Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
All 4 of them. Euthanasia is like 5 or 6 countries that accept it, and some states in the U.S. Death penalty, many states in the U.S. and many countries in the world. Suicide, assisted suicide, is legal in Switzerland. Okay, only place. And abortion is legal in many places, and it's a discussion that we are having here in this country nowadays. So I also brought some statistics for us to reflect, because it's important when we are discussing this subject. There are these are from 10 years ago, okay? According to the World Health Organization. There are around 200 million pregnancies in the world every year, 200 million, of which around 75 million unwanted, okay? Of these 75 million unwanted, you have more or less 45 million abortions. Of these 45 million, 20 million are done in an unsafe manner, causing the death of 2 in each 5 of these clandestine procedures, which means 300 women die per day because of illegal abortion, okay? These are just numbers for us to weigh when we are discussing abortion. We know what Spiritism tells us about abortion. We know that it's against the natural law. Now, how can we work to improve the opportunities and the knowledge of women that or couples that get pregnant and do not want to have the child? Every time you have an abortion, you create serious consequences for yourself. If you want, again, to read the consequences for the woman, especially of an abortion, the book Evolution in Two Worlds, chapter 14, called Criminal Abortion, from Francisco Xavier and Valdo Vieira. Again, second part, Evolution in Two Worlds, that has 2 parts. Second part, chapter 14, is a very detailed explanation of the consequences for the woman, serious consequences, physical, emotional, mental, of having an abortion, okay? So first I want to make it very clear here that Spiritism deals with causes and consequences, and there are serious consequences. Now, just to forbid the best solution, I leave it open, okay, because of the statistics. If we can find a better way, and I don't believe we have found, a better way of educating, of treating, of dealing with it, we should try to proceed. But making it illegal does not prevent it, because it happens all over the world, including the countries, including the countries that are illegal. And on this illegal, 2 in each 5 are done clandestiny, and 300 women die per day for clandestine abortions. Okay, this is what I wanted to bring on the subject. Just a couple of notes here on the 2 questions. When the abortion, when the mother is at risk of dying, you preserve the mother, sacrificing the child. Okay, the spirits say that this is you preserve a life that fully exists instead of a life that does not exist yet. Okay, you are not going to allow both to die if it's possible to save the mother. And finally, of course, the spirits talk about the respect we have for the body of a child that is unborn, and we have to have the same respect, because we have to respect God's creation. And if God creates, the creation is perfect, we have to respect the part of the creation. Okay, I know we went a little over, but I wanted to bring all these ideas. And again, we are open to discuss. We're going to go a little bit over if needed.
I'll have my questions for the questions.
Yeah, Elmo, I want to bring also your view here.
Yeah, I think it was very good that you brought the question 88 to the conversation. I think it was very good to bring this statistic. But having said that, once the Spirit states very clearly that destruction of our life is a crime, then it is a crime in any and all situations. In my view, an abortion is only truly okay and even suggested if the life of the mother is at risk. In all situations, it should not be performed because it's a crime against the natural laws. What is the solution? There is only one solution: education. There is no other way. Education, as in a course of the education Kardec mentions, that to educate the character, and once you educate the character, once you be smart enough to prevent unwanted pregnancies, with the number that you gave is staggering at 75 million unwanted pregnancies, right? I mean, with some moral and intellectual education, we should be able to cut off this number of unwanted pregnancies by a huge number. And when that happens, then you have the spiritual and moral education to go through the process as not to perform a crime against the natural laws. But having said that, it's very important that we say Spiritism is not condemning anyone in any situation whatsoever. Each one make choices and has to deal with the consequence of those choices.
It's I could go on, but I like to eventually talk about particular cases of incest and rape.
Oh yeah.
That's a difficult one. But anyway, that will be for the question and answer session. Because it's quite interesting. This is very, kind of thought provoking.
Even in those cases, it's the same divine law. It's the same natural law. It doesn't have an exception on question 880. The right to live is the natural right of human beings. Incest or rape, there is a spirit attached. So there are solutions for that, right? You can give to adoption. You can give to whoever needs. And I was reading when I was studying for this today. I read many questions asked to Chico Xavier on the subject. and it's very interesting because he's always talking about how abortion is a crime and how any other attempt of preventing pregnancy or of using artificial means to get pregnant at the time where they were first experimenting with the in-tube baby. I remember, I forgot the word now.
Yeah, intro fertilization, something like that.
Intro fertilization. Chico Xavier was talking in favor of all of this. Science, anything that science can do to help women get pregnant, women to have babies, is in favor. And Spiritism is, Emmanuel is telling me here that all the advancements of the science in terms of helping women, it's welcome advancements. So it's very interesting that when we talk, these delicate subjects of frozen the embryo, of all these things that are done in modern days. Spiritism is all for the progress of science. What Spiritism tells us is that to sacrifice a living being goes against the natural laws and create consequences. Every time we go against divine law, the natural law, we create consequence for ourselves. And again, the consequences for the mother, especially the mother, but also the father could be, you can read in this chapter 14 of Evolution in Two Worlds. Okay, it's a very interesting chapter, very dense. For those that understand medicine, I think it's much better than for those that do not understand, like me. But it has a lot of very good information there. Okay.
Very fascinating. Very fascinating.
All right. Thank you for your patience and attention here. So we are still on the break for the lectures on Saturdays. We still do not have anyone on this. The United States Spiritist Federation is starting a new course by the end of January called Initiation into Spiritism. If you have anyone that you know that you would like to recommend, that you think that would benefit from studying Spiritism from the beginning, is a series of classes every week. Starts on January 23rd, and several different speakers doing the classes. It's going to be on Sundays on the 23rd, starts on the 23rd, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. our time, so before our own classes, you have time. That starts on January 23rd, okay? This Sunday, it's the first Sunday of the month and the year. We're going to go back to the book Liberation. We haven't finished chapter 7 yet. So we are going to finish chapter 7. We are more or less in the middle of the chapter. So I will give a review of it and we'll go over it, okay? Happy New Year to all of you. And Zoraida, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, of course. And as we come to the end of our beautiful meeting tonight, we thank you, dear Lord, spiritual benefactors who have come to guide us and assist us of what is so important to each and every one of us. We thank you, dear Lord. We ask that we continue throughout the week with our studying at home, and most important, our prayers. As we meet throughout the week with our meetings also, may our Father be with us always, giving us enlightenment to what is needed in this physical world and for all that are in the spiritual world. We pray, dear Father, for those that are still going through finances, difficulties, for those that are in hospitals and hospices. Dear Lord, may we continue with our prayers to assist all those that are going through so much. We pray for our United States Spiritist Federation, United States Spiritist Councils, to our teachers, our mentors, our mediums. We are so grateful. Thank you, dear Lord. May we continue throughout the week with our prayers, always sending out vibrations of peace, serenity, and love. And for this coming year, may our Father be with us always, enlightening us, helping us, and guiding us through our days here on this planet Earth. We thank you, dear Lord. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close this part of the meeting today. So be it.